So right now, you can go online, type in your credit card number, and for like $20 a month, you get access to an artificial intelligence that can pass the state bar exam.
Right, easily.
It can write flawless code in dozens of languages, draft a competent marketing strategy in about 4 seconds.
Oh, yeah. It's incredibly cheap.
Exactly. It's universally accessible to literally anyone with a smartphone.
Yeah.
So if that's the reality we live in today, why on earth are the biggest, most technologically advanced Fortune 500 companies in the world paying a virtual unknown company millions upon millions of dollars to build AI for them?
Yeah, I mean, it is the defining paradox of the current AI boom, really. We are all completely blinded by the consumer-facing chatbots.
Right.
We see this incredibly shiny, user-friendly interface, and we just assume that deploying artificial intelligence at a massive global enterprise scale must be, I don't know, just as simple as opening a new tab on your browser.
Like you just feed the corporate data into the magic text box, hit enter, and suddenly your entire supply chain is perfectly optimized.
Which obviously couldn't be further from the truth.
Right.
The reality of enterprise AI is staggeringly complex. It's painfully slow. And honestly, it's incredibly messy.
Yeah.
It's the difference between buying a high-performance engine block and actually building a safe, functional, street-legal car around it that can be driven by 10,000 different employees simultaneously without crashing.
Oh, wow. I like that analogy.
Yeah, because the foundation models, the engines, they're getting cheaper and more accessible, but the engineering required to integrate that engine into a massive legacy corporation, that is where the real bottleneck is right now.
And that bottleneck is exactly what we're focusing on today for you guys listening. We're doing a deep dive into a company called Fractal Analytics Limited, or just Fractal.
Yep.
And our mission here is to kind of strip away all the theoretical, futuristic AI hype that we're constantly bombarded with, and look at the actual gritty plumbing of how artificial intelligence is being deployed inside giant corporations right now, today.
The actual reality of it.
Right. We're talking about the hidden architecture bridging the gap between raw, chaotic corporate data and actual money-making decisions.
Because if you really want to understand the AI revolution, you have to look past the companies building the foundation models and look at the companies acting as the bridge.
The middlemen.
Exactly. Fractal is essentially the central nervous system for over 100 Fortune 500 companies. They're the ones organizing the chaos behind the walls so that when a massive retailer or a global bank flips the metaphorical switch, the lights actually turn on.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Let's start by figuring out what exactly they're selling. Because when you look at the enterprise software space, it is incredibly easy to get lost in a sea of corporate buzzwords.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, enterprise AI, data analytics, decision intelligence, it all sounds great on a marketing brochure. But practically speaking, if I'm a CEO of a massive global logistics firm and I sign a contract with Fractal, what am I actually buying?
Well, you are primarily buying a massive, highly customized consulting engagement. You see, Fractal operates in two main segments, and you really have to understand the difference between them to understand the company as a whole. The first segment, and this is the undisputed heavyweight of their business, is called Fractal.ai.
Fractal.ai. Got it.
And this segment accounts for over 97% of their total revenue.
Wait, 97%?
Yep, 97%.
Okay, so for all intents and purposes, Fractal.ai is the company right now.
Basically, yes.
So what happens inside that 97%?
Well, Fractal.ai is bespoke project-based consulting.
Right?
They're deploying these highly specialized teams of data scientists, engineers, and domain experts directly into an enterprise to build custom data pipelines, design machine learning models from scratch, and create predictive analytics tools that are perfectly tailored to that specific client's chaotic internal system.
Wait, hold on. If 97% of their revenue is consulting, doesn't that just make them like a massive IT body shop?
I get why you'd think.
Like, what separates them from the legacy IT services giants that have been outsourcing cheap coding labor for decades? Are they just throwing thousands of smart people at a problem and billing for their hours?
That is exactly the trap a lot of people fall into when evaluating them. But there is a massive distinction between traditional IT services and what Fractal is doing here.
Okay, what is it?
Well, traditional IT services are often about manpower, right? maintaining legacy systems, doing basic system integration, or handling massive volumes of low-level code migration.
The grunt work.
Exactly. But Fractal is operating at the absolute top of the value chain. They aren't maintaining your email servers. They are building what they call agentic AI systems directly into your core business operations.
Stop right there. Agentic AI. I feel like I hear that term constantly now. Break that down for me. What makes an AI agentic as opposed to just regular AI?
Right. It's the difference between an advisor and an employee. Traditional predictive AI is an advisor. You feed it a bunch of historical sales data, and it spits out a dashboard that says, hey, based on my analysis, it is highly likely that you are going to run out of umbrellas in your Seattle stores next Tuesday.
Right. It gives me a warning.
That's predictive. But a human being still has to look at that dashboard, make a decision, open the inventory system, place the order, and arrange the shipping.
So the AI just gave me a heads up. I still have to do all the actual work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, agentic AI, which is what Fractal's core platform Cogentiq enables, takes the next step. It acts as an autonomous agent.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, so the AI notices the impending umbrella shortage in Seattle, automatically interfaces with your global supply chain database, identifies a surplus of umbrellas in a warehouse in Portland, calculates the most cost-effective shipping route, and then actively executes the transfer order within the parameters you've set.
Wait, so it does the ordering itself?
Yes, it doesn't
Huh.
just predict the future, it takes autonomous agency to change it.
Okay, that clarifies things immensely. Building an agent that can actively manipulate a Fortune 500 company's supply chain without bankrupting them.
Yeah.
I mean, that requires a level of engineering precision that goes way beyond traditional IT outsourcing.
Absolutely.
But you mentioned a second business segment earlier. If Fractal.ai is the massive 97% consulting arm, what's the other 3%?
The other segment is called Fractal Alpha.
Fractal Alpha.
Yeah, and it's tiny, only about 2 to 3% of their revenue, but its structure is completely different. Fractal Alpha consists of standalone subscription-based AI products and software as a service, or SaaS, platforms.
Okay, so actual software products.
Right. These are pre-built, standardized tools. So instead of hiring a team of Fractal engineers to build something from scratch over 18 months, a client can just buy a license to a Fractal Alpha product and start using it immediately.
I see. So the business model here is fundamentally split.
Very much so.
Fractal.ai is reliant on highly skilled, very expensive human talent to do custom consulting. You only make more money if you hire more consultants. But Fractal Alpha is software. You write the code once and you can sell it 10,000 times.
Precisely. The consulting side is phenomenal for generating massive, reliable cash flow and, deeply embedding Fractal into a client's daily operations. But consulting is inherently limited by headcount.
Right.
If you want to double your revenue, you generally have to double your highly paid staff. Fractal Alpha offers the holy grail of pure software scaling revenue without linearly scaling your employee count.
So to use a physical analogy here, Fractal is essentially operating a massive, high-end, bespoke tailoring business.
Okay, I like this.
They measure you, they cut the fabric exactly to your body, and they charge an absolute fortune for a custom suit. That is Fractal.ai. But now, with Fractal Alpha, they're taking the patterns they've learned from making thousands of custom suits and launching an off-the-rack clothing line that anyone could just buy out of the store. And they're using the massive cash flow from the custom tailoring business to fund the factories needed to mass produce the off-the-rack line.
What's fascinating here is that is exactly how their internal financial engine works, and we'll get into the exact numbers of that flywheel shortly. But to really understand why this custom tailoring is so lucrative, you have to look at who is actually walking into the shop.
Right. Who are the clients?
Fractal does not sell to small businesses. They don't sell to mid-market companies. They sell strictly to the largest, most complex enterprises on Earth. We were talking about over 100 of the Fortune 500 companies.
Over 100. And the client list includes majority members of the Magnificent Seven, right?
Yep.
The biggest tech titans in the United States.
Yeah.
Alphabet, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, Meta, NVIDIA, Tesla.
Think about the implication of that for a second. The Magnificent Seven literally invented, trained, and deployed the foundation models that kicked off the current AI revolution.
Exactly.
They have thousands of the smartest AI researchers on the planet on their payrolls.
Right. So if I am one of the Magnificent Seven, I literally own the supercomputers.
Yeah.
I own the foundational AI. Why am I picking up the phone to hire a consulting firm to do my data analytics? That makes zero sense to me.
Well, it's because Building a large language model and operationalizing that model for an obscure, highly localized internal business process are two entirely different disciplines.
Okay.
Let's say one of these tech giants has a massive, archaic legacy system for tracking hardware procurement across 50 different countries, right? And they're dealing with hundreds of different tax codes and local compliance
Sounds
regulations.
a headache.
A massive headache. Their core AI researchers are focused on achieving artificial general intelligence. They aren't going to spend 8 months untangling the spaghetti code of an internal procurement database from 2008.
Oh, I see.
They outsource that incredibly complex, unglamorous integration work to a specialist like Fractal. Fractal bridges the gap between the cutting-edge foundation model and the messy, chaotic reality of corporate operations.
They are the ultimate plumbers.
Yes.
The tech giants invent the water, but Fractal builds the pipe so it actually flows to the sinks.
Exactly. And the demand for that plumbing is creating a market size that is almost difficult to comprehend.
Yeah, let's get into the sheer scale of that market because the numbers here are staggering. We are talking about the total addressable market, or TAM, for global decision analytics and AI services.
Right.
Based on Fractal's internal estimates, relying on data from the Everest Group, the global outsourced spend for these services by Global 2000 enterprises is roughly $143 billion. And to use the exact Indian units reported in the sources, that is 12 trillion.
Yep.
And they project this will hit approximately $310 billion by FY 2030.
The growth rate is phenomenal, compounding at 16.7% annually. And frankly, depending on how broadly you define the market, those numbers might actually be conservative. Yeah, I mean, there's an IPO note from JM Financial that estimates the broader AI and analytics market, pulling in both services and the software side, at closer to $229 billion today.
Wow.
But even sticking to the stricter 12 trillion estimate for outsourced services, it is an ocean of capital.
But here's the paradox that completely stopped me in my tracks when I was looking at this. We have this 12 trillion market. The demand is clearly massive. Fractal is arguably a premier player serving the absolute top tier of global corporate clients.
Agreed.
Yet Fractal captures less than 0.3% of this total addressable market.
Yeah.
How is that mathematically possible? If the market is that big and they are that good, why is their slice of the pie still microscopic?
It is because the pie itself is mostly theoretical right now.
What do you mean?
You have to differentiate between the served market and the open market. The data indicates that only about 10 to 20% of this entire TAM is actively being outsourced to firms today.
Oh.
Yeah, only roughly 30% of Global 2000 enterprises have actually established mature AI and analytics operations.
Which means 80 to 90% of this market is completely, utterly untapped.
Exactly. 80 to 90% of the biggest companies in the world are effectively sitting on the sidelines.
That's insane.
They might be running a few localized pilot programs, maybe experimenting with a chatbot in their customer service department, but they have not deployed enterprise-wide decision intelligence. They are paralyzed.
I have to challenge this. Every single corporate board meeting on the planet for the last 3 years has been utterly dominated by the topic of artificial intelligence.
Oh, absolutely.
It's on the cover of every magazine. It's the only thing investors care about. How on earth can 80 to 90% of the Fortune 2000 still be sitting on the sidelines? Are these executives just asleep at the wheel? Or is there a genuine physical barrier stopping them from adopting this technology?
It's entirely a physical and structural barrier. It is not a lack of desire. It is a lack of readiness. And the primary culprit here is the data explosion.
The data explosion.
Yes. Enterprises today are generating 2.5 quintillion bytes of data per day. Over 90% of the Global 2000 have moved to cloud infrastructure, which just supercharges the amount of data they collect. They are hoarding petabytes of information.
But wait, isn't more data better for AI? I thought these models needed massive data sets to train on.
They need organized data. They need clean, structured, labeled data. Think of it like this. Imagine you want an AI to act as the ultimate librarian.
Okay.
You want to be able to walk in and say, give me all the books written by French authors in the 19th century that mention the color blue. And AI can do that instantly, but only if the library is organized.
Right.
What these massive corporations actually have is a warehouse where millions of books have been dumped into a giant pile on the floor, the covers have been ripped off, half the pages are in different languages, and someone set a small fire in the corner.
Oh, man.
You cannot just plug an AI into that chaotic mess and expect a coherent answer. It will hallucinate, it will pull incorrect data, and it will make catastrophic decisions.
So before they can even buy the shiny AI tools, they have to hire an army of people to build the shelves, bind the books, translate the pages, and organize the entire warehouse.
Yes, exactly. And that process takes years. That is data engineering, and it is the necessary precursor to data science. The reason 80 to 90% of the market is untapped is because 80 to 90% of the market is still staring at the pile of burning books on the floor, trying to figure out where to start.
That paints a really vivid picture, but they can't just ignore it, right? Because they aren't just doing this to increase their profit margins. From what I understand from the sources, there are massive external forces practically holding a gun to their heads, forcing them to adopt advanced analytics.
Absolutely. The structural drivers forcing adoption are inescapable. And the most aggressive driver right now is regulation.
Regulation, like government oversight.
Right. Look at the banking, financial services, and insurance sector, which we'll call BFSI. The regulatory frameworks they operate under are becoming mind-bogglingly complex. A prime example is Basel IV.
Okay, what is Basel IV?
It's a set of international banking regulations that completely overhauls how banks have to calculate their risk-weighted assets. You literally cannot do Basel V compliance with a team of accountants and a massive Excel spreadsheet. The volume of transactional data and the complexity of the risk modeling literally require advanced machine learning.
Wow. And it's not just finance, right? Data privacy laws are everywhere now.
Exactly. You have the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, in Europe, and the California Consumer Privacy Act, or CCPA. They mandate incredibly strict governance over how consumer data is stored, accessed, and deleted.
The right to be forgotten.
Precisely. If a European citizen exercises their right to be forgotten, a massive global enterprise has to be able to instantly locate and erase every single trace of that person's data across thousands of siloed internal systems. Global regulatory technology spend is currently hovering around $10 billion, specifically because companies need AI just to find their own data and prove to the government they are handling it legally.
That is wild.
Mhm.
And beyond regulation, there is a fascinating demographic tidal wave hitting the United States that is forcing adoption in the healthcare sector.
Yes, the aging of the baby boomer generation. In the U.S. right now, roughly 10,000 baby boomers reach retirement age every single day.
10,000 a day.
It's placing a structural strain on the American healthcare system that cannot be solved simply by building more hospitals or hiring more doctors because, well, there aren't enough doctors to hire.
Right.
Healthcare providers are absolutely desperate for predictive analytics. They need AI to forecast patient outcomes, optimize hospital bed utilization months in advance, predict which patients are at the highest risk for readmission, and personalize care models to keep people out of the hospital in the first place.
So it's a perfect storm. You have this explosive, chaotic data growth. You have governments threatening massive fines if you don't manage that data perfectly.
Right.
And you have entire demographic shifts threatening to break major industries like healthcare. The demand is existential.
That's a great way to put it.
But again, I have to play the skeptic. If I'm the CEO of a major hospital network or a global bank, and I know AI is an existential requirement for my survival over the next decade, why am I outsourcing this to Fractal? Why don't I just go out and hire my own internal team of AI engineers to build it so I own it forever?
Because you can't. The talent simply does not exist in the numbers required. The World Economic Forum estimates a global shortage of over 1 million AI and data professionals.
1 million. Wait, really? But every university is pumping out computer science grads right now. How is the shortage that severe?
Because we aren't talking about junior software developers who can write basic Python scripts. We are talking about high-level data scientists, machine learning engineers who understand complex neural network architecture, and crucially, professionals who possess both technical AI skills and deep domain expertise.
Domain expertise.
Yes. If you run a regional bank, you don't just need a guy who knows how to train an AI. You need a guy who knows how to train an AI specifically for credit risk modeling under Basel IV compliance standards. That specific combination of skills is incredibly rare.
And even if you find that person, you're competing against the deepest pockets in the world to hire them.
Exactly. If you're that regional bank, you are trying to hire that data scientist away from Google or Meta or OpenAI, who are offering compensation packages that a bank simply cannot match. Enterprises cannot find the talent, they cannot afford the talent, and even if they do hire them, they cannot retain them because the tech giants poach them.
That makes total sense.
That is why the services share of AI spend remains so remarkably stable at 40 to 50%. Corporations are forced to look outside their own walls. Fractal has assembled an army of these highly specialized experts, and they are sitting in an 80 to 90% untapped market market where everyone else is desperately looking for help.
Okay, so the opportunity is massive. They're the premier plumbers in a world where everyone's pipes are bursting, and there is a massive global shortage of plumbers.
Right.
But if this blue ocean is worth 12 trillion, Fractal isn't swimming in it alone.
Mhm.
Why aren't the legacy IT giants, the massive global firms with hundreds of thousands of employees, just swooping in, undercutting Fractal's prices and stealing all the clients? How does Fractal actually build a moat and defend its business?
Well, Fractal defends its territory through a very specific combination of proprietary technology and what I would call operational entanglement.
Operational entanglement.
Yeah. Let's start with the technology because they aren't just selling smart people, they're selling proprietary intellectual property. They hold over 100 patents in applied AI.
Wow, 100.
Their core platform, Cogentiq, which we discussed earlier in the context of agentic AI, provides capabilities that generic IT firms simply cannot replicate by just throwing manpower at a problem.
Give me a concrete example of that. What is a specific technological capability that separates Fractal from a generic coding shop?
The best example is how they handle retail competitive intelligence. Imagine you are a massive consumer packaged goods company, a CPG giant.
Okay.
You sell thousands of products, let's say shampoo, and you need to monitor the exact pricing and shelf availability of your shampoo against every single one of your competitors across thousands of different physical retailers and e-commerce platforms globally, updated daily.
That sounds like an absolute nightmare. Every retailer probably lists the product differently. One site says shampoo, 15 ounces, another says shrimp, 400 milliliters.
Exactly. Simple text-based string matching fails completely in that scenario. If a generic IT firm tries to build a scraper to match those names, it will generate massive amounts of garbage data. Fractal solves this using Cogentiq by deploying advanced multimodal AI.
Multimodal, meaning it uses more than just text.
Right. It doesn't just read the messy text. It analyzes the product images. It uses computer vision to look at the shape of the bottle, the color of the label, and cross-references that with the text. Furthermore, it applies retail-specific heuristics rules of thumb about how retailers typically abbreviate sizes or bundle products.
And what happens when the AI is only like 80% sure it's the right bottle of shampoo? Does it just guess?
No, and this is where the moat deepens. They integrate a human-in-the-loop verification process directly into the software.
A human in the loop.
Yep. When the AI hits a confidence threshold below a certain level, it instantly routes the image and the data to a human expert who verifies the exact SESCU match. The human's decision is then fed back into the AI to train it, so the model gets smarter every single day. The result is hyper-accurate competitive pricing intelligence. A legacy IT firm cannot build that multimodal, image-recognizing, human-reinforced loop overnight. It takes years of dedicated R&D.
So they have superior technology. But, even the best technology gets replaced eventually. What stops a client from saying, thanks for organizing our data and building this great SKU matching tool, we'll take it from here, you're fired?
The switching costs. This goes back to the operational entanglement I mentioned. When Fractal deploys these solutions, they aren't building a dashboard that a mid-level manager checks once a month. They are building the central nervous system of the company.
I love that analogy. It's not like swapping out a software vendor. It's like trying to remove the nervous system from a living organism.
Exactly. If Fractal's AI is actively regulating the heartbeat of your supply chain, automatically routing trucks and ordering inventory, and regulating the breathing of your dynamic pricing, adjusting online prices minute by minute based on competitor movements, you cannot just rip that out.
No.
If you unplug Fractal, your supply chain freezes, your pricing algorithms break, and your revenue drops immediately. The friction of removing them is agonizing.
It sounds a bit like the Hotel California effect. Once Fractal's AI is deeply embedded into your daily pricing and supply chain decisions, you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. The switching costs are just too painful.
That is a perfect way to look at it, and the financial metrics absolutely prove that this friction exists. We have to look at their net revenue retention, or NRR. In FY25, Fractal's NRR was a staggering 121%.
Okay, let's contextualize that for anyone listening who might be unfamiliar with typical IT service metrics.
Right, so a standard healthy IT services firm might have an NRR of around 100 to 110%. That means their existing clients are buying roughly the same amount of services, maybe a little more year over year.
Right.
An NRR of 121% means that not only is Fractal retaining almost all of its clients, their client retention rate is over 90%, but those existing clients are dramatically expanding their spending. They are buying the first AI solution, realizing how deeply integrated and effective it is, and immediately hiring Fractal to build 3 more solutions for different departments.
They have over 122 multi-year clients, and their Net Promoter Score, which measures customer satisfaction, is sitting at 77, which is exceptionally high for complex enterprise software.
Very high.
So they're sticky, and the clients actually like them. But how does Fractal manage the massive headcount required to service 122 multi-year, highly complex engagements without destroying their profit margins? Because data scientists are not cheap.
This is where their global delivery model gives them a massive structural edge over traditional management consulting firms. Fractal operates out of 17 global offices, but the vast majority of their 4,500 plus employees are based in India.
India.
Right. This provides a profound cost arbitrage advantage compared to a firm relying primarily on US or European talent.
But wait, earlier you said they weren't just a generic IT body shop outsourcing cheap labor.
Yeah.
How does having an India-based delivery model align with providing high-end bespoke AI consulting? Doesn't that just circle back to the IT services model?
I see why you'd say that, but the geographic location is the only similarity. The difference is the specialization of the talent. Generic IT firms hire thousands of generalist coders to do basic maintenance. Fractal hires top-tier data scientists and intensely trains them in deep, vertical-specific domain knowledge.
Oh, I see.
They have dedicated practices for BFSI, CPG, and healthcare. So when Fractal deploys a team in India to work on a European bank's compliance project, that team doesn't just know Python. They deeply understand the intricacies of European financial regulations. They are delivering McKinsey-level strategic decision intelligence at a completely different cost structure.
Okay, let's talk about the raw financial mechanics of this operation. Because having sticky clients and a cost advantage is great in theory, but how efficiently is this translating into actual cash? And we're going to look strictly at the reported facts of their internal engine here for you guys listening.
The entire financial profile of Fractal is built around an incredibly robust flywheel. It all starts with the high-margin, retainer-based consulting arm, Fractal.ai. This acts as the cash cow. Because of the cost arbitrage we just discussed and the high premium they can charge for bespoke AI, this segment generates immense free cash flow.
Okay.
Fractal then takes that cash and pours it into heavy research and development. Historically, their R&D spend has consumed between 6.8% and 15% of their total revenue.
Which is massive for a services company. Most services companies just pocket the profits.
Exactly. But Fractal is using that R&D to fund the creation of Fractal Alpha, the SaaS product side. They are taking the intellectual property they develop while solving specific client problems in the consulting arm, standardizing it, and turning it into scalable software products.
Right, the off-the-rack suits.
Yes. And while building software is incredibly expensive upfront, once it is built, the gross margins can be phenomenal, often north of 70%.
Let's look at the specific figures from the recent reporting periods to see this flywheel moving. In Q3 FY26, the core consulting segment, Fractal.ai, brought in $8,362 million in revenue. That represents a 21% year-over-year growth, which is incredibly strong for a company of this scale.
It really is.
But the number that absolutely fascinated me was their revenue per employee. It currently sits at approximately $84.05K, which is roughly 74 lakh.
That metric is the ultimate proof of their transition up the value chain.
But wait, let me push back here. Is $84,500 really a number to celebrate? If you look at pure SaaS companies or the big tech giants like Google or Meta, their revenue per employee is often well over $1 million. Why are we acting like 74 lakh is a massive achievement for an AI company?
Because you cannot compare a human-intensive consulting business to a pure SaaS business. A pure software company builds a product once and sells it 1 billion times. Their headcount doesn't scale with revenue. Fractal.ai is a services business. Their revenue is fundamentally tied to human output. In the context of global IT services, achieving 74 lakh per employee is exceptional.
Okay, fair enough.
And the context that makes it truly impressive is the trajectory. Back in 2021, their revenue per employee was sitting at roughly 30 lakh.
Oh, wow. So they have more than doubled the amount of revenue they generate from every single human being on their payroll in just a few years?
Precisely. You only achieve that by aggressively moving away from low-level generic IT tasks and selling highly specialized premium decision intelligence. They are charging significantly more for their expertise today than they were 3 years ago, and clients are happily paying the premium.
Because they're sticky.
Yep. And this pricing power flows directly to the bottom line. Their gross margins are holding very strong at around 46 to 47%. And their EBITDA margins are sitting comfortably in the 14 to 17.8% range, with management publicly targeting an expansion to 20% or more.
And what about the software side? If Fractal.ai is funding it, is Fractal Alpha actually growing?
It is growing exceptionally fast, albeit from a very small base. In that same Q3 FY26 period, Fractal Alpha generated $213 million. It is a tiny slice of the overall revenue pie, but that represents a 29% year-over-year growth. It is hyper-growth mode.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting to me from a purely operational standpoint. They have this brilliant financial machine. They use the lucrative high-touch consulting side to subsidize the creation of the highly scalable software side. But practically speaking, how hard is it for a company to culturally balance being a services business and a product business under one roof? Because those two models require totally opposite cultures, right?
It is arguably one of the most difficult cultural and operational transitions an enterprise technology company can attempt. It is a massive friction point.
I can imagine.
Think about the mindset of a high-end consultant. Your entire world revolves around pleasing the specific client sitting across the table from you. If the client wants a completely customized, totally unique dashboard that no one else in the world will ever use, the consultant's job is to say, yes, absolutely, we will build that for you.
Right, you bend over backwards to accommodate the edge cases.
Exactly. But a software product culture requires ruthless standardization. You have to build features that serve the broad market. If a single client asks for a weird, highly customized feature for the SaaS platform, the product manager's job is often to look them in the eye and say, no, that doesn't fit our product roadmap.
So you have half the company trained to say yes to everything, and the other half trained to say no to protect the software architecture. Managing that internal tension must be chaotic. How do you decide where to put your best engineers? Do you put them on the massive consulting project that pays cash today? Or do you put them on the software product that might be incredibly profitable 3 years from now?
Allocating R&D resources without starving the core consulting engine and aligning the sales team's incentives so they don't just sell the easy consulting hours but also push the new software licenses, it requires incredibly precise management. The fact that Fractal is managing to grow both segments at over 20% simultaneously while expanding their overall margins is a testament to immense operational discipline at the executive level.
So they have the engine tuned perfectly today. But a massive private valuation and ambitious growth targets mean they can't just keep doing what they are doing. They need a vision for the future. How do they multiply this success over the next 5 to 10 years? The research details 4 very clear, distinct vectors they are pushing to maintain this momentum.
The first and most immediate is deeper penetration into their existing accounts. We've established they have sticky clients and 121% NRR. The strategy here is simply moving clients up the revenue ladder. They currently have 58 clients generating over $1 million annually. More impressively, they have 29 clients generating over $10 million annually.
Getting 29 different companies to pay you more than $10 million a year for AI consulting is a massive achievement. How do you graduate a client from the 1 million bucket to the 10 million bucket?
Land and expand. You start by solving a very specific, painful problem. Let's say you overhaul their marketing analytics. The client sees an immediate return on investment. They trust you.
Right.
Once that trust is established, Fractal's account managers cross-sell their services into entirely different departments. They say, we fix your marketing, now let us look at your supply chain logistics, let us look at your human resources predictive hiring. You embed yourself in every single vertical within the enterprise until you become indispensable.
The second vector is ecosystem and product expansion. This ties directly back to what we were just discussing about the tension between consulting and software. They are deliberately trying to shift their revenue mix away from traditional headcount-based billing charging for consultant hours and moving towards output or license-based billing.
This is critical for their long-term margin expansion. They are aggressively pushing to anchor products like Cogentiq and the entire Fractal Alpha suite deeper into their clients' daily workflows. Management has specifically stated a goal to push Fractal Alpha to a break-even point by late FY27.
Wait, if it is growing at 29% year over year, why does it take until FY27 to break even? Is it losing money right now?
Building enterprise-grade AI software requires massive upfront capital expenditure. You are paying teams of engineers for years before you sign a single software license. Right now, Alpha is a drag on their overall profitability. It is being subsidized by the consulting wing.
Okay.
But once Alpha hits scale and breaks even, every incremental software license sold drops almost purely to the bottom line. The overall financial profile of the company will shift dramatically when that happens.
The third growth vector is geographic expansion, and this seems like the most challenging one to me. Right now, Fractal's revenue is heavily concentrated. A massive 65.8% of the revenue is generated in the Americas. They are looking to expand heavily into Europe, which currently sits at 21.2% of revenue, and the APAC region, Asia-Pacific, which is at 13%.
The expansion into APAC is strategically fascinating, particularly when you look at the macro trends in emerging markets. Consider the formalization of digital banking in India, specifically the scale of the UPI, the Unified Payments Interface.
Right, UPI is huge.
The sheer volume of digital transaction data being generated in India right now is unprecedented globally. Financial institutions absolutely require world-class AI analytics to monitor that massive flow of transactions for fraud, to optimize localized credit models, and to understand rapidly shifting consumer behavior. Fractal is perfectly positioned to capture that.
But expanding geographically is not just a matter of translating your website and buying some international ads. If they want to grow that 21% European share, what is actually required on the ground?
It requires a massive upfront investment in localized sales infrastructure. You cannot sell a $10 million AI consulting package to a German automotive giant using an American sales team over Zoom.
Probably not.
You have to hire regional sales directors who deeply understand local European business cultures. You have to navigate completely different, highly fragmented regulatory environments across different European countries. You have to establish local delivery centers to handle sensitive data that legally cannot leave the EU. All of this means your general and administrative expenses, your G&A, will spike significantly before the European revenue catches up. It is a slow, expensive grind.
The fourth and final growth vector is premiumization. This means leaning hard into highly complex, strictly regulated sectors that command premium billing rates. Healthcare is the prime example. It currently makes up 17% of their revenue, but as we discussed with the aging demographics, the demand is exploding. And more importantly, the cost of failure in healthcare is so high that clients are willing to pay absolute top dollar for accuracy. You don't want to discount AI predicting patient readmission rates.
Exactly. If we connect all four of these vectors, sell deeper into existing clients, shift the billing model to software licenses, expand into Europe and Asia, and focus on premium industries like healthcare, the roadmap for justifying their valuation is incredibly clear.
Think about this for a second. If you're Fractal and you're already serving the biggest Magnificent Seven clients, isn't there a ceiling to how much more you can squeeze out of them before you are absolutely forced to look overseas for new logos?
That is the exact vulnerability investors look for when evaluating a long-term growth horizon. While an NRR of 121% is fantastic today, the law of large numbers is inescapable. Growth within a single massive account will eventually plateau. You cannot sustain 20% annual growth infinitely within a single client's fixed IT budget. Eventually, you saturate the account.
Right.
This is why the geographic expansion into Europe and APAC is not just an aspirational goal, it is an existential requirement. They absolutely must establish strong beachheads internationally before their biggest American clients hit their theoretical ceiling.
That perfectly transitions us into the final area we need to unpack, the real existential risks. The future looks incredibly bright on paper, but no company survives for 26 years without facing massive threats. Let's set the stage by acknowledging their recent wins, because the momentum they are carrying into these headwinds is substantial. In the FY 2024-2025 period, their total revenue hit 2,765.4 crore. That represents a phenomenal 26% year-over-year growth.
And even more impressive than the top-line revenue is the efficiency of their profitability. Their earnings growth during that period was a staggering 46.6%.
46.6%.
Wow. To truly appreciate that number, you have to look at the broader software industry average during the same period, which was hovering between 11.6% and 16.8%. Fractal is crushing the industry average earnings growth by nearly a factor of 3. They're operating at an elite level of efficiency.
They are also moving incredibly fast on the product side. They recently launched a platform called LLM Studio, which specifically targets customized generative AI solutions. It shows they aren't resting on their laurels with traditional predictive analytics. They're aggressively moving to capture the massive current wave of Gen AI demand.
And driving this ship are the original co-founders, Srikanth Velamakanni and Pranay Agrawal. They have a 26-plus year track record of navigating this company from a tiny startup in the year 2000 to the behemoth it is today.
That's a long time in tech.
It is. Based on the capitalization data, Pranay Agrawal holds an 8.68% ownership stake, and Srikanth Velamakanni holds a 4.3% stake. The longevity and stability of this leadership team are crucial assets because the risks they are facing over the next 5 years are vastly more complex than anything they faced in the early 2000s.
Let's break those risks down, starting with the most immediate external threat, regulation. We know that 65% of their revenue is concentrated in the U.S. market. What happens to Fractal if the U.S. government suddenly decides to dramatically tighten data privacy laws?
It could be highly disruptive, particularly to their operating margins. Imagine an expansion of the CCPA or a sweeping new federal data privacy law that mandates strict data localization.
Data localization.
Yes, data localization laws require that data generated in a specific country must be processed and stored on servers physically located within that country by citizens of that country.
Ah, I see the problem. If the U.S. government says American healthcare data can only be analyzed by American workers sitting in America, that completely breaks Fractal's model.
Exactly. It would severely compromise the massive cost advantages of their India-based global delivery model. They would be forced to hire vastly more expensive US-based data scientists to service their American clients, which would instantly compress their EBITDA margins. They would have to fundamentally restructure how they deliver their services.
The second major risk is competition, but not just from other consulting firms. The real threat is client insourcing. Massive IT giants like TCS or Accenture could try to undercut Fractal on pricing, sure. But what stops a Fortune 500 company from simply deciding they have the budget and the strategic imperative to build custom GenAI large language models entirely in-house, bypassing external consultants altogether?
This threat of insourcing is deeply intertwined with the third massive risk: technological disruption. The AI landscape is evolving at a breakneck, almost violent pace. The tools to build AI are becoming democratized. Have you heard of automated machine learning or AutoML?
I have heard the acronym, but explain exactly what it does. Does it mean the AI builds the AI?
Essentially, yes. AutoML platforms are designed to automate the time-consuming, iterative tasks of machine learning model development. Historically, you needed a highly paid data scientist from a company like Fractal to manually select the right algorithms, tune the hyperparameters, and train them all. AutoML allows a regular software engineer or even a business analyst to simply upload data, and the system automatically tests thousands of models to find the best one. Breakthroughs in AutoML could potentially replace the need for a significant portion of Fractal's custom manual model building services.
So the technology gets so user-friendly that the client doesn't need to hire the expensive plumber anymore. They just buy a self-installing pipe system from Home Depot. And beyond AutoML, there's the massive rise of open-source models.
The proliferation of incredibly powerful, free, open-source large language models like Meta's Llama series could fundamentally commoditize Fractal's proprietary platforms overnight. If a client can download a free open-source model that performs 90% as well as Fractal's bespoke multi-million-dollar system, the justification for paying premium consulting fees begins to evaporate very quickly.
Okay, but let's be real. With GenAI becoming so accessible, couldn't a Fortune 500 company just hire a half dozen smart prompt engineers and build this internally instead of paying Fractal millions of dollars? Why hasn't that happened yet?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the answer lies in the vast, almost insurmountable difference between an experimental chatbot and true enterprise-grade deployment. Yes, a team of 6 prompt engineers can build a fantastic, highly impressive prototype in a secure sandbox environment over a weekend, but deploying that model into a highly regulated production environment where it impacts actual revenue is a completely different universe.
What exactly breaks when you try to move it from the sandbox to the real world?
Everything. First, integration. You have to connect that cutting-edge LLM to decades of messy, siloed legacy data spread across mainframes from the 1980s and modern cloud databases. The LLM doesn't know how to read a 20-year-old proprietary inventory database natively.
Right.
Second, and crucially, data security. If you take your company's proprietary pricing strategy and feed it into a public LLM, you have just leaked your intellectual property to the world. Enterprises absolutely require isolated, walled-off models that guarantee their private data isn't being used to train the public model.
All right, you can't have your AI accidentally whispering your trade secrets to your biggest competitor.
Exactly. And finally, governance and hallucination prevention. An AI hallucinating a historical fact in a chatbot is funny. An AI hallucinating a pricing error and automatically marking down your entire global inventory by 90% for an hour will cost the company tens of millions of dollars and get the CEO fired.
That would be a disaster.
You have to establish rigorous governance frameworks, human-in-the-loop fail-safes, and continuous monitoring. Fractal isn't just selling the AI model, the model is cheap. They're selling the security, the integration, the governance, and the ironclad guarantee that the AI will actually function safely within the complex machinery of a Fortune 500 company. The foundation model is just the engine. Fractal builds the entire car, stress tests the brakes, and teaches the client how to drive it without crashing. A team of pumped engineers cannot build the car.
That makes perfect sense. They're selling the safety harness, not just the rocket. The final risk we need to cover, though, isn't technological. It's purely macroeconomic. Fractal is highly exposed to the broader economic environment, specifically cyclicality and client concentration.
A recession in the United States would be brutal for them. When major enterprises are forced to slash budgets, massive, multi-million-dollar AI consulting contracts are often the first things to be delayed or canceled. But this vulnerability is severely magnified by their client concentration. The financial reports indicate that roughly 10% of Fractal's entire revenue comes from just one single Magnificent Seven client.
10% is our massive revenue from one single company. That is terrifying.
It is arguably their biggest Achilles heel. It perfectly illustrates the double-edged sword of serving the largest companies in the world. When a Magnificent Seven company buys your services, they buy in absolutely massive volume, driving incredible immediate growth. But if they decide to leave, or if they decide they finally have the internal talent to insource that specific function, they leave a massive smoking crater in your balance sheet.
Ouch.
Losing 10% of your revenue overnight would be devastating. Fractal's management is clearly aware of this concentration risk, which again reinforces exactly why their geographic expansion into Europe and their push to acquire more healthcare clients are so critical for their long-term stability. They have to diversify their revenue base.
So after unpacking all of this, what does this massive puzzle actually look like when we put it together? If we synthesize everything we've discussed today, Fractal Analytics is essentially a 26-year-old overnight success story in the enterprise AI space. They are sitting on the edge of a colossal 12 trillion gore mark that remains 80 to 90% completely untapped due to messy corporate data and a severe global talent shortage.
And they are capitalizing on that opportunity with a highly disciplined financial engine. They are using an incredibly lucrative, immensely sticky consulting business where clients are expanding their spending at 121% year over year to fund their ambitious, highly scalable software dreams. The metrics are phenomenal. 26% top-line growth, 46.6% earnings growth, and gross margins pushing 47%. They have built a formidable moat based on proprietary multimodal technology and deep sector-specific domain expertise that generic IT firms cannot easily replicate.
So why should you, the listener, care about any of this? Because whether you realize it or not, Fractal's invisible architecture is likely impacting your daily life right now. Whether you are checking out at a global retailer and finding the exact brand of shampoo you need in stock at the right price, applying for a mortgage at a major bank and having your risk profile assessed in milliseconds, or visiting a hospital where the staffing levels were accurately predicted months in advance to ensure you get care, Fractal's AI plumbing is likely making the decisions that affect you. They are the ones quietly organizing the chaos behind the walls of the global economy.
They are the architects of the quiet AI revolution. While everyone else is distracted by the public hype cycle and the latest chatbot updates, Fractal is fundamentally, systematically altering how the largest corporations on Earth actually operate.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a thought to ponder that builds on everything we've explored today. We started this conversation by talking about plumbing, the hidden infrastructure that makes the light turn on. Right now, Fractal is being paid handsomely, generating billions of rupees to build incredibly complex pipes for the world's biggest companies. But if artificial intelligence eventually continues on its current trajectory, if it becomes as ubiquitous, as standardized, and as completely commoditized as electricity itself, does the true value of a corporation still lie in the AI models and the complex piping? Or does the value shift entirely to the proprietary siloed data that those models are fed? And perhaps most importantly, if breakthroughs in AutoML continue, what happens to the highly paid plumbers like Fractal when the pipes eventually learn how to build and install themselves?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question that will define the next decade of enterprise technology.
Something to mull over next time you flip a switch. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.